Justin, Bill, and Tommy too. Adventures waiting just for you.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Torque and Thrust Talk Show. I am your host, Bill, and we've got a packed show for you today. Today, we're going to be diving into some seriously interesting developments, specifically in two industries, which are going to be automotive and aviation. And then also, Tommy is going to update us with some gaming news earlier. But with that being said, let me introduce my co host, Tommy D of Level Flight Simulations. Good morning, Tommy D. How are you doing this morning?
I am well, Bill. How about yourself? Good morning.
I am doing great. I had an interesting week. So for those of you that follow me on TikTok, rest in peace. We'll see what happens at the end of this week. I had a drone encounter this week, and so that's
You did.
yeah, and to a point where I felt like it was important that I made a PSA because I felt like the lack of understanding and the seriousness of flying drones near commercial aircraft is for some reason falling short of having people understand what that means. So if you guys really want to, I'm not gonna go into depth, but if you guys really want to hear about what happened, definitely go to my TikTok, and it's even on Blue Sky in 6 different parts because Blue Sky only accepts 60-minute segments or 60-second segments. But long story short, we're on final going to Chicago, and there was a bigger drone, not SUV size, but a big drone that was within 300 feet vertically and 60 feet of us that flew by. And that was unbelievable because if it was any higher, if we couldn't see it and avoid it, if that thing went into our engine, we would have definitely had an engine failure. It would have definitely caused a lot of damage because it wasn't a small drone. So I've talked about it on TikTok. I've talked about it on Blue Sky. Now I'm going to use this as a platform. If you are a UAS drone user, a drone, whether you fly recreationally, whether you fly professionally, please go to the FAA.gov website, to the Pilot Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. I believe it's Chapter 15, and read about airspace. The resource that I use is AirPortal or airspaceportal.com or airspace.portallink.com. It'll click like right where we were. It said clear to fly, but understand that doesn't mean that you're cleared to fly into airspace. That just means there's no requirement to contact air traffic control, but you still need to understand what's going on in that airspace because this whole drone flying near airplanes thing, it's not funny. It's going to kill somebody eventually. So I'm just trying to get the message out there that even if your intent is to not harm larger aircraft carrying passengers, you still got to be situationally aware. And for you as the drone operator, you are wholly responsible for that. Just like I, as a captain, am responsible for the passengers behind me. Tommy and I also talked about this because there's a lot of like aviation stuff going on in this past couple months, hasn't it, Tommy? Like the Korean 737 that a gear up landing and went off the end
hmm
of the runway. We were just talking about in the pre-show. We were talking about the Delta Airlines flight that just evacuated in Atlanta. That's an interesting one, just because it was an engine fire, which normally I'm not Monday morning armchair quarterbacking this, but normally if the fire is outside of the pressure vessel, which is the main fuselage, it's safer to keep people inside, especially with the given weather conditions. Um, and usually on the ground, especially with ejected takeoff, airport rescue firefighter, they're pretty quick to respond. But another point, flight attendants can initiate evacuations on the ground if they saw something unsafe. So the school of thought is if it's safer to keep people inside, then do so, because if you have an evacuation, people will get hurt. It's not maybe they will, somebody's going to roll an ankle, somebody's going to get sprain something. It's a matter of what happens during an evacuation. So just varying stuff like that. We had the Azerbaijan Embraer 175 that got shot down. We're still not sure what's going on, but the problem is, and Tom and I were talking about this, is we'd love to talk about these things, but unfortunately, we can't talk about them because there's no official reports out yet. There's just speculation, and we don't do speculation on the show. We don't.
Right,
So
right.
we're not being tone deaf to what is going on in the industry. We are just waiting for more details to come out before we start talking about these things. But
Right. And I think with the Embraer, we're going to be waiting a while because that's not an American-made aircraft. So the NTSB might not have been invited to that um,
correct.
investigation
And also,
because I know,
given the propaganda machine that is Russia, we won't even
right.
know if the actual report that comes out is accurate.
Yeah, I would be highly suspect of those findings.
Yeah.
Now, if there was like some sort of worldwide independent aviation community that investigates,
Mhm.
might hold a little bit more than a cup of water with me, but it is going to be interesting to read. And, like Bill said to his point, uh, we got to wait until we have something concrete and not be opinionated on it, but rather just present the cold hard facts of the investigation,
Right. Yeah. And
which is
so,
what we've done now for well over a year.
yep. So we're just waiting. We're not being tone deaf. We're not ignoring the fact that all these things are going on. Like, for example, we didn't really address the drone thing because I don't like the hysteria that we're seeing on media, on social media, on news. I don't know. It's so drones are a threat, like I mentioned in my video. They are a threat to commercial aviation, but I'm not saying they're UFOs. I'm not saying they're a foreign country or foreign entity trying to survey the United States. It's most likely little Johnny boy who got a really expensive drone for Christmas, who doesn't know any better, or his dad or mom doesn't know any better, and they're flying it out over the lake, right?
Yeah,
So,
and it might literally be that they are like myself, an av geek, and don't really understand what it is. Like he might not understand that aircraft coming into the airport have set routes to fly.
yep.
Even though they have air traffic control, there are set procedures and procedure turns and
Hmm.
excuse me, all different variables that assist you in getting your aircraft on the ground safely every time.
Yep. And that's why I put that video out there. There are free tools that can help you understand what's going on around your unmanned aerial system. But Tommy, what about you? Any updates since the last episode? Anything interesting?
Uh, well, the one incident that we spoke of that I really can't discuss openly because I'm still shaking my head at that one. I fell asleep this morning, shaking my head. I woke up and still couldn't figure that out. Um, as far as like, we're in January now,
Hmm.
so the better half of me is starting to plan our vacations. Um, Bill and I might be meeting up in June. We have some logistics to
Yes.
work out, but I will be at the Flight Sim Expo in Rhode Island, so that I can stamp
Yep.
that as a definite that now I'm going. Hopefully this week I'll be booking the hotel room for
Very
Kim and
nice.
myself to go. Um, yeah, Providence, Rhode Island.
Yep. And
So,
I'm trying to. I already talked to the wife. She's always down to travel. She's never been to Providence. So if I can get the days off, I will definitely be there. And let's be honest, you're probably gonna get more recognized than I am because I am not a flight simmer. So I'm not as good as a
well,
flight simmer.
one of the really cool things is some good friends from our community will be there.
Oh, no
Franco
way.
will be there.
Ooh,
Confirmed. Yeah, him and his family are gonna be there all day Saturday.
very
They're
nice.
gonna drive up for the day. Yeah, so it would be great because, a couple weeks ago while we were on hiatus and you were still training, one of the things that I've been wanting to do is do a group flight with Franco involved, and we had done a live stream with
Mhm.
General Aviation, and Franco was there, and it was a blast. It was a blast. He's hysterical.
Yeah.
We had a really a good time, and like I was bouncing off things because I was literally laughing so hard I would like lean back in my chair and
Mhm.
forget that my hand was on my yoke. So next thing you know, I got a dual turboprop that's angling it like 80 degrees up. But
Good
it was
doing aerobatics.
hysterical.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and other than that, school started,
yeah.
and I am taking analytical statistics too, and I chose to do that as my only course this module because I just want it over.
You chose to do, or is it a required like coursework?
It's required for
Okay.
my degree,
Okay.
but I get to choose. I have a little bit of leeway on which order I get to choose my classes,
Okay.
and I saw I needed to take that, and I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, we're just doing this and getting rid of it."
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, because I would say analytical statistics. Good luck with that, buddy. I had to do
Oh, it's
statistics my
painful.
freshman year, and it was painful. My dad loves. My dad is my mom both are retired math educators, and my dad is the statistic king. He absolutely loves statistics and probability. I hate it. That is the one thing I absolutely despise. So
That's funny.
good luck with that. I'm probably not gonna be any
Oh,
of help. I can tell you if there's two pennies, no, three pennies, there's eight possibilities. There you go.
Yes.
That's all I got. That's basically what I got from statistics. So,
And it's funny. I have a cousin, and she was a lifelong educator with her master's in general education
mhm.
that wound up as the president of the school board where she lives in upstate New York.
Oh.
And I had sent her a message. It was like, listen, I'm just going to send you my homework. And simply, it was like literally a one-word message: retired.
Yep. Nah, I don't do that no more.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
But kind of circling back to the it's the Flight Sim Expo is what it's called, right? In Rhode Island this
Yes.
June. So I am gonna try to be there. Tommy will definitely be there. So if you guys
Hmm.
are looking, definitely look out for Tommy. Sorry, he's over here. Definitely look out for Tommy. I'm gonna try to be there if I can get the days off because that's something I've always wanted to go do. I may have to buy myself some level Flight Sim merch then if I'm going, or maybe I was also thinking about maybe doing some Pork and Thrust Hawk Show merch too. Maybe I'll do that. Like a make a nice logo.
Yeah, I definitely need one of those T-shirts.
Yeah. So something to think about in the future, but definitely something where a real world meetup may actually happen. And I have the capability we could possibly do a live podcast together. I was thinking about
Hmm.
that. If I'm able to do that, I can try to see if one of the hotels we're staying at has conference space that we can use. I got lavalier mics that go correct directly into my iPhone. So we have the microphones. And I have the tripod for my iPhone or iPad. I have my iPad too. We just set that up, go live from the iPad, bing bang boom,
And boom. Yep.
and we got a live show. So we'll definitely look into that. That's something I'm definitely trying to get. I just need to be able to get the days off is the only issue with that right now. But with that, folks, grab your coffee, settle in. We got a great episode today talking about AI, the good, the bad, the AI. So let's get started. What do you say, Tommy?
I am ready. Let's roll.
All right. So first up, let's talk about the future of air travel. It's no secret that the airline industry is always looking for ways to improve efficiency, safety, and to make sure the actual airplanes are going out on time. And that's kind of where artificial intelligence is stepping in kind of a big way. We're not talking about robots flying just yet, but AI is being implemented in some really fascinating ways. An example of this, and I got this from Technology Magazine, one of the articles I was reading, it points out that International Airlines Group, or IAG, which is a group that includes Aer Lingus, British Airways, Iberia, and Vueling, they're all focusing on developing AI in their everyday, I guess, operations. So much so that they started two labs in Barcelona and London called the IAG.ai Labs. Now, some of you may be wondering, okay, so how does AI kind of play into this? Think predictive maintenance. AI algorithms, are now analyzing massive amounts of data, predicting the potential mechanical failures before they even happen. So this means that there's less downtime for maintenance for airplanes, fewer delays for passengers, and ultimately safer skies. We're also seeing AI-powered systems optimizing flight plans, leading to fuel savings and lower carbon emissions, which I think is pretty cool. But it's not just behind the scenes for this. We're starting to see AI pop up in customer service too, like with KLM and Lufthansa. They have chatbots, virtual assistants, which help customers with booking, changes to their flights, and even real time flight information. My company does that where the message that you're getting during a delay or about a change in your schedule is not a physical person typing it, is actually AI sending you a message on your application letting you know why your flight is delayed or why it's not leaving on time. And realistically, it's all about streamlining the process to make air travel a little bit less chaotic. That's a good way of describing it nowadays. It just air travel seems very chaotic. So hopefully AI is trying to streamline that. And of course, with advancements like these, there are always conversations about the ethical implications and job displacement, which is something we can talk about later today in our show involving our discussion topic. But these are vital points that will continue to follow as the industry evolves. Now, air traffic control is another sector that also uses AI algorithms to process data from multiple sources, such as weather information, flight plans, and aircraft positions, to provide controllers with real time situational awareness and support more efficient and safer aircraft separation, which we just saw that in the news today down in Phoenix. The airline industry is also exploring the potential of AI in the realm of autonomous flight by integrating AI powered systems into aircraft, and we could even see a future where flights are operated by machines with minimal human intervention. We've talked about that in the past. Episode number 2, Danger, Bill, Tommy, and Justin, Danger about automation in our career fields. We can once again talk that more in our discussion today. But as the industry continues to evolve, the benefits of AI will become even more apparent with the potential to completely transform air travel as we know it today. Now, we'll hit the pause button. Let's shift our focus to the current state of the automotive industry because this is also an automotive show. With the rise of electric vehicles, we keep talking about them. There's a lot of autonomous driving technology that are being implemented in these new electric vehicles, and the automotive landscape is undergoing a rapid change. So, electric vehicles are rapidly gaining popularity thanks to their eco friendliness, cost effectiveness, and convenience. So, according to a report by the International Energy Agency, the number of electric cars on the road worldwide reached 7 million in 2019, which is a 40% year on year increase. Growing demand for electric vehicles, automakers are investing in a development of a robust charging structure, which we talked about in the past. Companies like Tesla, Volkswagen, and BMW are working together to create a network of fast chargers, enabling vehicle drivers to travel long distances without worrying about running out of power, because that is the biggest challenge to EVs today, as we talked about in a couple episodes in season 1, is the infrastructure isn't quite there. Meanwhile, autonomous driving technology is advancing at a rapid pace. AI powered systems are being integrated into vehicles to enable them to perceive their environment, make decisions, and interact with road users safely and efficiently. To ensure the safe deployment of autonomous vehicles, the industry is working closely with regulatory bodies, standards organizations, and stakeholders to establish a framework for testing, validation, and certification of all these new vehicles. In addition to these advancements, connected cars are becoming increasingly common thanks to the integration of low T and 5G technology. They can communicate with their surroundings, cars can exchange information with other vehicles, infrastructure, and even pedestrians, which is paving the way for a more efficient and safer transportation system. As these trends to continue to shape the automotive industry, we can expect to see innovative new solutions that enhance the driving experience, increase safety, and reduce the environmental impact of transportation. The integration of AI in the airline and automotive industries is driving significant change with the potential to completely transform the way we travel. It's an exciting time for these sectors, and I, for one, I'm super excited to see what the future holds. What about you, Tommy?
I am pretty excited to see what the future holds, but I'm going to hold back a little bit more
Hmm.
because um, with our discussion coming up, I'll go a little bit deeper into it.
Hmm.
I'm skeptical.
Yep.
See, I'm
And
more of a hands-on guy. I come from the generation of lesser technology. I
yep.
mean, we put a man on the moon and we had technology, but not anyone near the levels that we have now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Back in the 70s and 80s, we were not even, we had engineers that weren't even thinking this yet.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm gonna hold off just a little bit longer
Okay.
until we get into our meat and potatoes.
Okay, that sounds good to me. But with that, we're talking about AI. What better way to transition to talking about AI? Let's talk a little bit about gaming, Tommy.
Let's do that. Let's do that. So I have been watching the boards, as everyone knows, PC Gamer and a couple of other magazines. I kind of watch the message boards and what's going on in the gaming industry, and it's always been a hobby. So when I presented the game I wanted to talk to with Bill, I'm surprised that neither one of us had played this game because right now it is starting to take off again. The name of the game is Delta Force by Nova Logic, and for those of you who are not familiar with Nova Logic, they have been around forever. They are normally uh, all sorts of military genre type games. The Comanche, Armored Fist, which is tank. Not very many naval games, and they're known to make sequel games. So there's Armored Fist 1, 2, 3, 4, Comanche, and then two other games to follow suit with that. They have air attack packs. They have the MiG 29 package. So, and Nova Logic has been around for a hot minute. They actually started developing back in 1995, 1996, when if you had dial up internet, you were the cool kid on the block. In fact, some of their information actually still supports dial up LAN technology. Now, all you kiddies out there, you don't know what that is, but you would go get a disk, plug it in, and your computer would literally dial into the internet with network and give you like this really, really weird noise. And that was the thing. One of the big drawbacks is if someone called your mom or dad, you lost your connection. I digress. The name Delta Force, labeled as a first person shooter, originally developed in 1999. The game is now free. The base game Delta Force is now free on the Epic Launcher, which is also the same launch engine that holds Fortnite OG. So the entire Fortnite series is in on this. And I started noticing an uptick in people streaming this game. So I got a little curious and I wondered why all of a sudden we have a game that's in excess of 20 years old. Like you don't most people don't even have a car that old. If they do, they're making money off car shows with it. Well, some of the research that I came up with, now there is team deathmatch, there are different types of battle royale games that you do this, and it's not exactly it's more of like a king of the hill or capture the flag type strategy. It did get gigged for some of the games being too long and so many different sequels of the game, but this is one of the OG first person shooters. And there are so many people that are starting to stream this game. And when I started digging a little bit deeper about what this game was about, this is all coming back to mass exodus of people and gamers, not necessarily some of the bigger streamers out there, where you go into their room and there's 10, 15, 20,000 viewers at the same time. Even just a standard gamer, everybody is this close to just straight up being sick of Call of Duty and all their games and their, I won't call it inability, but they're just totally ignoring to fix the cheating. You know, anyone can go on TikTok and you're going to see 3 or 4 people playing Warzone or Team Deathmatch. They're in bot lobbies. They're in, they have wall hacks and aimbot. And like these people know where you are right from the spawn and they're already shooting at you. You like, and I really don't understand that mentality. Like, don't get me wrong. I like to win all the time too. But to actually cheat about it, you're the ones ruining the integrity of gaming. Just straight up there. But and it was funny because when I sent Bill the information, I was like, Bill, you probably played this, and I can't believe that there's a game of this age that has been revamped over the years with a more digital gaming era that neither one of us has played. So,
Nope. Yeah,
uh,
I've never played it. Never heard of it actually. Which I played video games when I was younger. So, the ones that I played were like Jane's Combat Missions. Um, I forgot the name of one. Well,
that
you were
was a
on
good one.
an Apache helicopter, Nuclear Strike, I think is
Hmm.
what it was called. Which if they revamped those for PC, like Windows,
They
do
did.
it. Wait, did they? Is
Yep.
Nuclear Strike is revamped?
I believe Nuclear Strike was revamped. Nova Logic redid Comanche based on
Okay.
the U.S. Army's Comanche
Yeah.
program.
Okay. Well, I need to go
There's
look at
one
those.
other. There was one I always enjoyed playing called Fleet Command, where you actually commanded a carrier battle group, including the subs. That was a
Ooh,
great game. I wish they'd
interesting.
redo that one.
Yeah, I need to go look at that because Nuclear Strike was the one I used to play all the time. That was back. That was before joystick. That was all keyboard and mouse. That was a good time.
Hmm.
So yeah,
That was a good one. That
I'll
was
have
a
to look
good one.
because I have an Epic Games account. I'll have to go check out the Delta Force because if that's coming back, maybe that's something we need to stream. Maybe
Yeah, yeah. I actually just downloaded it while you and I were in pre-show. Literally took about 30 seconds.
that makes sense. Yeah, older games like that generally aren't as big as
Hmm.
the newer ones. But that's interesting because kind of goes into our little bit of our discussion today about video games and AI in video games. Now that you're talking about it, is yesterday I saw one in Steam. It's called Paradise, and it's coming soon. I didn't see an actual release date. But have you ever seen the movie Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds?
Mm,
It's
no,
on
I can't
Disney.
say I have.
I think you would like it. I absolutely love that movie. That's one of the ones I've watched over and over again. It's basically like a GTA 5 open map, and it's about Ryan Reynolds, who is an AI, but in his coding, he's actually learning. And so he becomes kind of self-aware that he's in a game. But basically, it just goes into that the AI characters that we experience in open world games have more life behind the doors than we realize, type of deal. So it's this Paradise game that's coming out. It's kind of offering the same thing. It's like an open city. No, it's like you just live your life type of thing versus like GTA 5 where you have missions and stuff like that. So I have it saved on my wish list. When it comes out, I'll definitely try to stream it because I'm curious if it's going to be like Free City, which is the video game that's in the Ryan Reynolds movie. Because I love, if you can't tell, I love open map games like
Mm.
ATS and GTA 5. So, and something that is like virtual reality, I love another movie I love is Ready Player One. Have you seen that one? Ready
I've
Player One
not seen the
is,
movie. I've seen clippets and snippets of it here
yeah,
and there.
Ready Player One is one of my favorite. Something about virtual reality worlds that are as complex as those, and even in Free Guy, it just for some reason that sparks my interest. That's partly why I'm a geek. So, but yeah, so that's something that's definitely some newer games coming out. It looks so far 2025 seems like it's gonna be a good year for games.
It is, and I'm waiting for the big list. Xbox Game Pass, PC Game Pass, PC gamers, they're all making their predictions, which is going to be our big hits
Yep.
of 2025. But they're not releasing anything yet, and I'm like, all right, guys, enough with the little teaser. I need the info. Do you not realize who I am?
Yeah.
I'm co-host on a talk show. Need the info.
Need
You
the
know,
info. Yeah, well, that's another one I was thinking about too, because like I said, I love open world maps and ships. I did stream a couple days ago. I did the ship simulator extreme, which was okay until it crashed. It's a little more, it's not fun to stream just because it's more technically involved. Um, but there is another one from Ubisoft called Skull and Bones, which has a free trial that I may try. It's open world. A lot of people are bashing it. But the thing is with like Sea of Thieves, I like Sea of Thieves too, but Sea of Thieves is just like, I don't know if it's the graphics or what it is. After a while, I get a headache playing that sort of game. So I'm probably
yeah.
gonna end up looking at that too. So yeah, definitely a lot of good um, things on the future for gaming this year. I think this year is gonna be a good year, especially if GTA 6, excuse me, comes out when it's supposed to in the fall of 2025. So
I'm
um,
going to go with my prediction for that already, and I'm going to put it in a calendar as a reminder. I'm going to go with nope. It ain't going to launch. I think there's going to be a 30-day hold on it, only because
uh
of development reasons.
I don't think so. The latest insight that I've been reading is everything's back on track for a fall of 2025 release, and they actually keep narrowing it down. It's like early fall. The only thing that's
Okay.
gonna suck is gonna be the PC release because right now it's only on console. And I was actually talking to my wife about this. I have a console. It's hooked up to my computer via capture card. I don't know if I want to spend the money twice because obviously I want to be able to play it on my PC, but I also want to play it when it comes out. So, like, should I
Right.
get it
Right.
on Xbox and then like 2 years later buy it again for PC? I might. I don't know. It might because that's what I did now. I have a PC version of it, so I could do 5M and all the flight sim stuff I do with San Andreas Flight Sim on live
Mhm.
stream, and I also have it on Xbox. So I'll probably end up doing both. Especially if you get it, then I need to get it on PC so we can play it together.
Oh yeah, and just wreak havoc all over the open map.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I am
yeah.
planning on getting it, in 2027.
Yeah, when it finally does come out, or maybe they'll surprise us. Maybe they'll roll a PC version out along with the Xbox version. The only problem is the Xbox version is a lot easier to fix bugs from the launch. So I
Mhm.
think that's why they tend to launch. And also, PlayStation, Xbox has been their primary launch platform for all the games.
Oh yeah, the years and years and years. If it
Yeah.
wasn't for
So
those two platforms, they would have never had.
yeah. So
Rockstar would have had some issues.
yeah, so I think that's partly why they're doing that. But thanks, Tommy, for the gaming update. I'll definitely check out. I actually added it to my list while you're talking. For the Delta Force. But with that, why don't we transition into some jargon in a jiffy? How's that sound?
I am ready,
Okay,
sort of.
so as you guys know, Jargon and Jiffy is a staple to our show, or if you don't know, it is a staple. It is we kind of move segments around. We're trying to keep things more casual, but Jargon and Jiffy's not going anywhere because it's just such a fun word game. What's going to try to change with it is going to be how we do it. Season one, we just basically sat there and said, "Hey, here's a word, here's a sentence. What does it mean?" And that was good for educational purposes, but we're trying to make it a little more fun. So last week we did aircraft recognition with Tommy D. We were throwing up pictures of airplanes, having him guess the actual airplane, and then trying to figure out what the affectionate nicknames, what pilots like myself call them in the industry, and which was a lot of fun. We learned a lot of new things. This time, it's still going to be aviation related, but what's going to happen is there's a lot of things in the aviation industry, or not a lot. There's going to be a couple that we try to demonstrate here. That is a body part of the human that kind of translates to the aircraft or the airline industry. So I'm going to say a body part, and Tommy D is going to try to guess what I'm talking about when it comes to the airline industry. It's not specific necessarily to airplanes. It's just the industry. It could be airplanes, could be in the industry, etc. So we're gonna start off easy, and then I'm gonna try to work up a little bit on it. So, are you ready, Tommy?
I am ready. Let's go.
Okay, we're gonna start first. Right, super simple. The body part of my is the nose.
That was the very front of the aircraft, right
There
there.
you go.
The cone in the front of the aircraft.
Right there, the nose. Right now, the tail end. Right, the tail. Where
The
I have
tail, where the vertical and horizontal stabilizers are, otherwise known in the aviation industry as the empennage.
empennage. Yeah. Hey, there you
Empennage.
go.
Hey, New York, Texas, different
I remember
pronunciation.
seeing that word. I'm just like, a what? Empennage, empanada. What? Um.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I
okay.
am not talking about a pastry here.
No, yeah. Although empanadas, they started. I think they're called half moon empanadas. They started popping up in Chicago and Denver. Oh my, they're expensive, but they are good. They are so
Oh,
good. Anyways, I
very, very
digress.
nice.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're gonna turn it up a little bit. Okay. I.
Hmm.
I will give you a hint. There's a word that generally goes before this, but what do we call? It's usually what I do. The ones that you track. What do we call those? While you're working.
I.
Yeah, so it has the word I in it. There's something before it. So the flights that I normally work while you're
Oh,
working and
red
you track.
eyes.
There
Red
you go.
eyes. Where you're
Red
flying
eyes.
through the night.
Yep, and red eyes are called red eyes because you're up all night and you by the time you get your destination, you're ready for sleep, your eyes are bloodshot. That's why you call them red eyes. Good. Good.
Hmm.
Here's another one. Head. It's the
Well, I
same
know
thing.
there's heading.
Okay, well that's yeah, okay. That is actually I didn't even think about that. That is one. The one I'm thinking about also has a word in front of it. I do it quite a bit.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I think you did it down to Costa Rica last time. You deadhead a flight where you're
There you
a
go.
passenger and you fly it on the way back.
Correct. Actually, I flew it down to Costa Rica, but yeah, you're right. So deadheading means that we are working as a pilot, but we're not flying the actual aircraft. They buy us a seat in the back, and we fly as a passenger to be in position to fly another flight. Deadhead. Good. Dang, Tommy. Okay. I'm trying to think. I got one more for sure. Okay. If I can think of another one, but this one is probably the hardest one. My leg. What is a leg?
Oh, a leg is when you're going from point A to point B as pilot flying and not pilot monitoring.
A leg is leg. But you're right. It's from point A to point B. So if I'm flying from Chicago to Boston, for example, that's one leg. And then if we do Boston to Houston, that's a second leg. So you're right. A leg is a flight. The official name is like a flight segment. I guess it would be a way to talk about it.
Hmm.
But from point A to point B is a leg. From point B to point C is a leg, and it actually
Is
doesn't
another
matter.
leg. Yep.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter who's flying or not. But you can some people you'll hear pilots will say that's my flying leg, or I was monitoring on that leg. But leg refers to a segment, a part of the segment. So point A to point B to point C, and so on and so forth. And also when we look at a trip, we can say, hey, I have 3 legs today, or I have a total of 8 legs for the trip, and that's what we're talking about is how many of those flight segments that we're talking about. Good job, Tommy. Can you think of
Thank you,
any
thank
other
you.
ones? I can't. I don't think. I think that's it. That's about as complicated as it gets in terms of body parts related to the aviation. So you did good.
Yeah, there's not, no, I
No,
can't think of any that
no,
would be outstanding. That would be something that, yeah,
no,
no, I'm going with a
no.
hard no on that one now.
Good job. Yeah, right on, right on. All right. Now we get to. I'm gonna have Tommy. This is Tommy's topic that he wanted to discuss. So Tommy, why don't you tell us or tell the audience here what we're talking about today?
So today we are talking about the good, the bad, the AI. Everyone now knows with the technology that we have that AI is launching in all different sorts. Now, everything from video gaming to writing essays in a detailed way in a small passion for people working on their degrees and their thesis and stuff like that with like the generation of chat gpt and this that and you know so many other programs out there now. One of the things that I've always been very very curious about is everyone speaks of ai in a very very positive light. There is very little conversation that wants to know the dark or the downside of ai. And that's one of the things where, like, when Bill and I were discussing, I was like, that's what I really wanted to broach. That's a topic I wanted to see. It's like, let's see what educators, what engineers actually think of AI and the dark side of it. And there is substantial, and I went very, very technical. The articles that I had researched are from Virginia Tech and from USC, who have very large AI departments as far as like research and development stuff like that. And before we continue with the topic, there's one mnemonic that I would like everyone, because you're going to hear it come up multiple times. And one of the researchers, Dr. Rowe, she's involved in this, and it's LLM. Okay, so it's large language module, and that's some of the things that AI is sectored off into in the professional developmental world. So these LLMs are all over the place, and they're almost like they're directly linked to huge, huge data centers, which is kind of going to segue into the first portion of the conversation, and I believe is a downside of AI: the data centers and the size of the data centers that have to house the AI and their engines and their working and their thinking caps, so to speak, are massive. These data centers are massive. So one of the things that has been thrown in the road has lately been the size of their carbon footprint. That whereas, especially now, this day and age, with a push towards clean energy, EVs, reusable energy, solar power, wind generated power, organic foods, everything now to where it's a question of sustainability. So, is AI sustainable with the large um, carbon footprint that they're leaving for their data sections? Because we're talking hundreds of millions of servers and server space on a we'll just deal with the United States, the geography of the United States, just their data centers, the space between the lower 48 is massive. I mean, I couldn't even imagine. And when I started looking for statistics to actually give everybody cold hard facts about this, oddly enough, I couldn't find them. Which now I am no conspiracy theorist. I'm not saying there's a secret and you can't have this information. It's just not readily available because AI is not as young as a lot of people think. This was first thought up back in the 90s, the later 90s and early 2000s, and literally engineers invented the technology to make this work. It went along the lines of the space shuttle, like when the space shuttle program was ordered. Reason why it took so long is because NASA invented the technology to actually construct the space shuttle and make it for a time period sustainable. Um, Sorry, I kind of went tangent. To digress a little bit, the carbon footprint, massive, huge. Don't see anything from Greenpeace or people who want a a greener Earth. So I'm still waiting, and this is actually something I've been watching for a little while. Quality of life. A lot of people say, "Oh, AI has made my life so better. It's made my life so better." Okay, how? You know, assisted robot arms, mobile wheelchairs, things like that. Yes, they're definitely helping. Autonomous vehicles. We did have a conversation, and I remember episode 2 last year, and I'm still not a fan today. So, rehab robots that gain the ability of walking again for someone like a small child who was affected with a disease. They actually have robots that are teaching this kid how to walk. They put them on, they go to the physical therapy room, and it works at a reprogrammed pace. And this is all done by AI, which, okay, I am all with that. A potential for bias is there from incomplete data. If you know, it is still AI is still a running computer program. So if you don't put the proper information in, so bad in, bad out, right? Um, what? they're also looking at is you could be biased and unfair because if Bill will pop into the screen there. So here you have Bill and myself, two healthy men, right? If we're both affected by the same medical condition that might affect our mobility, well, Bill is quite a bit taller than me. Bill comes in at 6 foot. I'm only 5'7". So if I get his program, my programming to help me with these walking robots is going to completely be off and not be beneficial to me. And this is one of the things that they're talking about is actually a downside that people who are programming need to actually pay attention because even though it's AI and it works on its own and becomes self-aware and it learns, it's still being programmed by a human and a human is not infallible. So
So
I found that portion to be a little interesting.
yeah, and you can keep when you're finished. I'm gonna play devil's advocate on this because I've been kind of
Oh,
taking
have at it.
notes.
Let's go.
Okay, so okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is carbon footprint. Right now, let me be extremely clear. I believe in that AI could help. And granted, Tommy and I come from two different generations. I grew up with technology. I'm a millennial, um, but barely on the cusp. Like when I was born, Wi-Fi and cell phones were just starting to be a thing. Not even Wi-Fi, excuse me, internet. I was born 2 years, 3 years after internet was released to the public by the military. Wi-Fi didn't come out until I was like 4 or 5. Um, but AI, I think, could be helpful in a sense. Now, my stance is obviously I don't think it should completely take over the human element, in which we'll talk about it a little bit later too. But let's start off with the carbon footprint. What is so AI is artificial, right? It's not a human being. It's not a carbon based being. What about where's the carbon footprint coming from?
The carbon footprint is coming from their actual brick and mortar data centers that a
Okay,
lot of the programming and everything is housed. So kind of think of it like a massive multi-server infrastructure,
is that the
like
LLM?
what runs our internet now.
Yeah, is that the LLM?
That's the LLMs. They
Okay,
they don't call they call them LLMs.
okay. So the carbon footprint of the building, is it the electricity that's required to run them? Because they themselves, other than the space that they take up, so is it like the basically
It
electric,
is the
right?
electric that comes in that generates
The
all of these,
cooling and the
and
power.
the cooling, the power, the emissions that are vented out through the roof from just the amount of heat that is generated is amazing. And I'm
Okay,
actually looking for the figure, and it's driving me up
okay.
the wall that I can't find it
But they're
because I
not
pinned it.
producing carbon, right? So like a car produces a carbon emission. An airplane does because it's actually
Right.
shooting out.
So
So
their carbon footprint. I see where you're going with this. So yes,
yeah.
the carbon footprint is actually done by whatever grid electrical that they're on.
Okay, so it's the grid because I was gonna
Surprising
say
Virginia Tech didn't mention that.
yeah, because I was saying that the actual server itself doesn't produce carbon. Even the vented hot air is just hot air, right? That's it's leaving. But the infrastructure, like the building and stuff, requires mainly power, right?
Hmm.
Is the main thing behind it. Now, here's my question, because that was one of your things you're talking about. It's not the carbon emission part of it is not as favorable as they say it is. What if there was a solar powered um LLM? Which granted, okay, and granted,
And
we're gonna go down a rabbit hole because technically you could argue that the carbon emissions and footprint required to create each individual solar panel is a thing, right? Because
it
everything,
is
yeah, it's everything comes with a cost. There's no such thing as zero carbon emission. There's only net zero, right? The offset. So
right.
would a solar powered LLM kind of change your mind with that carbon footprint in terms of offsetting the need for, because the way I think of it, and once again, this is I talked about it earlier about the ethical implications. um I'm a human being, I'm working in an office being assisted by AI. If I no longer need heat necessarily, no longer need water to be heated, I don't need food, I don't need to be trash to be taking out, that sort of stuff, and the AI replaces me and I'm just a server, and the only thing that's requiring me in terms of carbon footprint is the power to power that server. If there was a solar, right, because the carbon footprint comes from like a coal burning or a non-renewable resource burning electrical source. So if we were to do like solar, something that's like renewable, obviously being blind to the fact that there's a carbon footprint associated with the solar panels, does that
Yes.
would that offset the
It very
carbon?
well may, because I'm actually looking for a scientific article, like an actual factual article with that,
Mhm.
because neither of the two that I sent you from the University of Virginia
Yeah.
or USC
Mhm.
actually deal with that, which I find kind of interesting.
Yeah, because that's one thing that I heard. I was like, well, if
Excuse
you
me.
could technically, because everything's net zero. It's not, there's no such thing as zero carbon footprint because us as human beings have a carbon footprint because we exhale CO2. So
Right. Right.
that's
So I believe it would be greatly reduced.
okay.
The carbon footprint, if you went to a solar powered system, it would definitely
Hmm.
be greatly reduced. The one thing that I do know now is, and I've read numerous articles about this, I believe we discussed this once too. Solar power is great, because the sun, even though it doesn't tell us where it's going when it goes to bed at night, it still shows up for work the next day.
Because the Earth is round.
Um, yeah, the the problem is not the actual solar panels themselves; it's the battery and charging systems that we're
Right, we're like a
a
lithium ion.
little bit behind.
Yeah, well, and also the carbon footprint to produce the batteries. A battery cell or battery bank big enough to support an operation like that has a huge carbon footprint.
Right,
Right.
because picture a server system, an LLM,
Hmm.
just with the surface area of your house.
Yeah.
So how, you could probably fit, a couple thousand servers in that amount of square footage, properly spaced so the heat doesn't
Yep.
um, cross
Overheat or anything.
contaminate and cause other issues. That's still going to be pretty substantial.
Yep. And I
But
was also
wow,
yeah, I think the carbon offset. That's why I was just wondering. Another thing too, I wanted to ask is there's two times during your discussion you said you agreed with it and then you didn't agree with it. So are you
yep.
for AI or against AI? Because you
So
kind of
you know
went back
what?
and forth.
I am about 60% for AI and 40% against AI. And let me bring you into another little facet. Um, you being a college graduate,
Hmm.
previous to AI, when you had essays and research papers that you needed to do, you had to use your brain
Yep.
and books and,
Wolfram Alpha.
online encyclopedias and things
Yep.
like that, right?
Hmm.
Whereas, like, I date back to where I physically had to open an encyclopedia and not plagiarize.
Yeah.
One of the things that came up in USC, can it help or hurt a student's creativity? Now, with the way my college is set up, everyone knows that I'm in SNHU and that mine is completely 100% online. I don't go to a brick and mortar at all. I will when I go to graduate,
Hmm.
but that's the only time I'll ever visit the campus is my graduation. Um, One of the things is they call it a non-judgmental partner for brainstorming. So you could get into like GPT or another one of the programs and kind of brainstorm the idea for your essay or your research paper, and it'll start pointing you in the right way. A big portion of my personal schooling is message boards and research papers, not
Hmm.
necessarily in statistics right now, because now it's just bar graphs and misery.
Yeah.
But I did try to write one of the papers using my college's proprietary AI. It kind of like a spin that they had, or some sort of educational agreement they have with ChatGPT. And oddly enough, much like last week, it did not feel like I did it. The paper was like grammar was good. It was right on point with what my paper was about. I had like no sense of creativity, and I actually felt that even though I controlled the information in, the information out did not. It wasn't me. It wasn't my thought process. It wasn't my creativity. So some
So
states,
so how does that?
with that
Sorry.
being said,
Yeah. So how does that work? Did you type in like prompts or how does that chat work? Because you had to put something in there.
yeah.
Maybe
So
it's
essentially, I typed a paragraph on what I wanted, and it started from there. And
okay.
then it just started listing and writing things. I actually had to put in some of the footnotes I wanted and where I wanted the research. Like I had to fine tune it,
Okay.
definitely.
So you still
But
you still use not fully to the extent, but you still had to have an idea
Bullet
of where to
point it.
send it, right? Yeah.
So essentially, I bullet pointed it.
Hmm.
So the programming that the AI uses in their algorithms and all that, were able to zoom in on the specific information that I needed to
Okay.
pull out because
So
um, I used it for one of my sustainability classes.
ironically.
So yeah.
So
So,
my
and
question to
it
you
pulls from everywhere.
is, okay, so you created a paper, right? You
Hmm.
did have to do some work, right? Because you had to kind of guide the AI in the direction
Yeah.
that you wanted and review the paper. Um,
Hmm.
would you say you'd spent less time writing a paper than you normally would in the old way, like how I had to write college papers without Chat
I
GBT?
did.
Okay.
I did. When you sat down
Mm-hmm,
to do a paper, let's say it took you like a day or two to get all your research, your footnotes,
mm-hmm.
your bibliography, all of that stuff done,
Yep.
right? Your they don't call it a bibliography, the APA style
Yeah,
formatting.
your sources. Yeah.
Yep, your sort thing. Thank you. Um, yeah, I knocked everything out in pretty much 90 minutes.
Okay. And did that include the sources too? Did it like cite its
Yep,
sources for
that
you?
was my APA
Okay.
style formatting, the source list, everything. My um For that assignment, I believe part of it was 5 footnotes. Like there's 5 mandatory footnotes I needed to, it was like one of the parameters that the
Okay.
professor had given us for this paper. Like I want no
And
less than 5
and
footnotes, something
did
like
you
that.
research the footnotes, or how did you get to the footnotes? Or how did you tell it? Did you have to do like a little bit of research on your own to be able
Yeah,
to?
I copy and pasted and it footnoted itself.
Okay.
Like
So,
what I wanted to use as a footnote,
yeah.
I had to physically put in and then it rewrote
Okay. And where did you get that?
as a footnote
Did you
what I
do the
want.
research on that? Is that where you got where you copy and pasted the
No, I
footnote?
just pulled it straight from the article.
Great. Okay,
Like, I did almost 0 research on the sustainability.
but you had
I
to find
kinda
you had to find the
let it
article
run
though,
amok.
right? You had to find the article
Yes.
to footnote.
I had to
Okay.
find a master article which was internal
Okay.
to the college in our
Mhm.
digital library.
Okay. So, and remember, I'm playing devil's advocate here, right?
Oh,
Because I was
yeah, and this is why I picked this because we have not debated in such a long time.
no, and I am a debater. That's what I did in high school. So I'm kind of picking this apart, and trying to spin it in a way. So you did have to do research, right? Even though it was a smaller amount of research, you had to use the skills that you know of to find the article, to find the footnote, to generate the essay. Right? Is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Okay. It only took you 90 minutes. It used to take me hours on end to write essays.
If not days, right?
So let me ask you a question in terms of quality of life, right? Because ultimately it comes down to, is this beneficial for humankind or not? Right? It's what we're talking about. Would you have an honest answer? Would you have rather spent 6 hours doing a paper, or 90 minutes and then doing something that you wanted to do with the free time that you had that AI cleared up for you?
So, brutally honest, the 90
Hmm.
minutes was the way I wanted to go.
Okay. So,
At the
here,
end, I was not happy with the product.
okay, which is fair, right? Because it's AI is learning and stuff like that. But the point I'm trying to make is, because we're talking about the good, the bad, the AI. Is AI good or bad? In that instance, I would argue that your quality in life, or quality of life, improved because you spent less time doing a paper. You used your brain because you had to find the articles. Now, granted, writing research papers is a skill. I'm not gonna lie, that is something that I think is becoming a lost art, just like writing letters, right? Or cursive, right? But it's one of those things.
Absolutely, and hold on to that thought because
Okay,
that's gonna be coming up momentarily.
okay, because cursive, perfect example. I know how to write cursive. My wife doesn't. Is it cool? Yeah, I can do it. But is it useful? No, because a lot of things type now. It's an old art form that is going away, with a lot of other things. So it's one of those things that's, I would argue that AI in that instance helped improve your quality of life because you had more time to do what you wanted to do versus what you had to do, which could be spend time with your significant other. You could go make more content and study more or research more for the talk show and stuff like that. So it's just one to say, I would argue in that instance that even though you weren't using as much creativity, you still had to implement skills that you were taught for researching to then use a tool such as AI to help you minimize a 6 hour thing. And also that may help with workload too if you have other classes. that's my argument. Is I'm not saying it's necessarily the best thing, but in the assistive role, as I said before, not take completely taken over, but the assistive role of I would argue that that improved your quality of life a little bit rather than sitting 6 hours and trying to create a paper.
It did as far as the maximizing of my personal
Hmm.
time, right? So I can't disagree or throw that one back at you. So
Hmm.
yes, the time saved, quality of life, yes, better. One of the things, and this is what I told you to put a pin in this because
Yep.
the USC article had brought up someone that uses a chat GPT or an AI generated program to do
Hmm.
their paperwork. Now, even though you just like we both agree, you need to put the baseline of information in
Hmm.
because, you know, think about it. If you're sitting at a gate at O'Hare, if you don't program your computer, does the plane know where to go?
No, but
Right?
no, yeah, not necessarily.
Exactly. So, like, you have to put a certain amount of information into the FMC, do what you need to do, safely take off. When you are say, hey, I don't want to fly this no more, and you flip the autopilot command A on, the plane now knows where to go because it's going to follow the inputs that you put in,
Okay.
right? So your SID, your flight plan, your star, all that stuff, right?
Hmm.
To a degree,
Yeah.
at the
Except
very
it's not.
basic, right?
Yeah, I would say it's not AI, but I would also argue that it requires typing into Chat GBT the commands for it to come out the way you want it to. Also requires a
Hmm.
higher level of communication and thinking because now you're practicing communicating. Because if I'm just typing something, I'm not thinking about how my professor's going to interpret it or someone reads my paper years from now, how it's going to interpret it. But if I'm telling Chat GPT, you're actually taking a very maybe complex subject and you're trying to simplify it into words so that it can create something that you want. So it's in essence, you're becoming a better communicator because you're having to think critically about how
Mm,
you want to simplify a complex subject to tell a computer how to generate something,
right. And
which in real life is a huge thing, especially for like what I do, taking something super complicated, take an example, passenger PA, something super complicated that's going on, but simplify it to a different way to where it still explains what's going on, but is in terms and words that a passenger can understand. Someone who has no idea about what I do up in the flight deck. So I would argue that that thought process is more beneficial because you're learning how to communicate better, even though it's to in that instance to a AI computer, but you're trying to get your point across in a simpler, more concise way.
yes, it is, and I agree with you to a point. But here's the problem. One of the issues that they're studying right now with students who are heavy. Apparently, we have a guest star on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and I just caught it now through one of the monitorings. I think she just smacked Bessie in the nose for no apparent reason.
Oh,
But one of the things that they're actually studying, and this is one of the studies that's going on as we speak at USC,
hmm.
is fixation of the mind. And the even though you do need to use your own creativity, like we've been discussing for the last 15
Hmm.
minutes, to program the AI program to pinpoint and go into what it is we need. One of the things that some of the naysaying
Hmm.
scientists now, oddly enough, I know you're going to find this is a surprise. The scientists that are a little bit more against AI come from my generation, whereas you know I was
Surprise. Surprise,
yeah.
surprise.
I mean,
The
I was
go touch
14
grass
years old when
generation.
we got exactly. I was 14 when we got cable. I was in my 20s when the internet popped up.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, and it was funny because I had made a joke to LANs and dial up, and I remember having to go to the store and buy a net zero disk or an AOL disk to
Yeah.
get my computer to connect. Um, but they're saying is what it actually is stifling, and this is what aggravated me because I really, really deep dove this subject matter because I
Hmm.
wanted to have the end game was I wanted to have a really cool debate only because we haven't done it in months, and we had to brush that off. But I really want to see statistics. I want to see learning. I want to see what these scientists from my generation
Hmm.
had to say about this. And the only thing that they're really coming up with is they feel that it's stifles the natural human creativity. And even though it is a non-judgmental partner for brainstorming,
Hmm.
which clearly it is, if your computer is judging you, get away from that computer. And it one and they take the belief in oneself. So that's their argument, that it is stifling your natural creativity, even though you do have to feed information into it. We've established that. We agree on that. Excuse me, the apartment's super duper dry today.
Yeah, and the thing is, and I can understand kind of that argument, but it's this is also coming, and I mean this in the best way possible. This is also coming from the generation that said, "Well, back in my day, this is what we did." It's the generation, that generation where the scientists are coming from where the era that they're from, were the ones that said, "Well, I had it tough, so you have to have it tough." That's kind of where I see it in the airline industry all the time. Well, you got into the airline industry at 22 because it's a lot easier to get in back than back when I did it back in the 1970s or whatever, when they were flying the
Mhm.
727s around. you know so it's one of those things. I think there's also a generational bias, which you and I talked about. We did that episode season 1 where we talked about our generational differences, which was a really
That was
funny
really
episode.
fun, by the way.
That was a good
I
episode.
like that. That's my
um
number 3.
yeah, that's an awesome episode. So there is a little bit bias in there too, because what they're seeing is, well, back in my day, I had to, spend 6 hours and crack open an encyclopedia to actually not plagiarize. Correct, but you
Mhm.
also didn't have the technology available. Who's to argue that if that technology was available back then, that you all would have already started using it? You know what I mean?
That is
And then
true, and that is a good point. Um,
so I think there's also a generational, because
that
it's just
that's rough to kinda
yeah, it's hard to
answer.
dive into because it's subjective, right? Because I know,
Mhm.
there's a really cool TikToker. He's an American Airlines pilot, older guy, has a great TikTok account. But then people his same age at my airline and airlines across, across the United States, are sitting there going, "Oh, TikTokers this, they're horrible. They're ruining the profession, blah blah blah." I see that all the time on forums and stuff like that as well. So it's one of those things. There is a generational bias to it as well, and the fact that you said these scientists, which granted they are scientists, but there's always a human bias, which AI, by the way, takes out. Another argument point. I don't want to prolong this argument because I also want to go into we did have a poll on our Discord, and one person did comment that I'll get to here in a second about what they think about it. But there is a generational bias associated with it too, because like I said, in an assistive nature, don't mind AI. It's We even talked about the pros and cons in our last episode, which was a AI generated script. Fun fact, my stuff today was also an AI generated script. I went through and found the articles and stuff that I wanted, and I typed it into a thing, and then I edited the script to sound a little more natural. But what I like
Like
about
you?
it, yeah, exactly. But what I like about it is there's less us. I was an actor in high school, so I can act, so it's a little more fluid. It keeps everything concise, so we have more time to do the decision making, or the not decision making, sorry, the discussion topic that we have. So, there's some bit in an assistive nature. However, I will argue AI only in the flight deck, not a good idea. Not a good idea. I would never recommend that, just because I can see the fallacies and the pitfalls of AI, and automation that we have now is not perfect. The amount of times that I have to override the cockpit or override the autopilot in the flight deck in the cockpit, it happens a lot. So it's one of those things, like AI to an extent is okay, but a complete AI I don't agree with. And I think we've been talking more about the AI side of things, in terms of assistive right now. And another thing I just want to kind of touch on too is you were talking about the programming. Me 6 foot, you 5'7". If we program the robot, that's not entirely true, because with the technology nowadays, there could be a menu. I mean, it happens on our phone, it happens on TikTok. You can go in and adjust the settings to what you want with the same platform. It's kind of the same thing. There's UIs where you could possibly do that. So that I don't necessarily agree with that argument that it may not be the same across the board. I feel like we have advanced enough with technology and automation that you can adjust it, to be better fitting. Now, granted, it still has to be a general cookie mold, but I think there's ways we can um, specify and make it more accurate to the person who's using the AI. But
Mhm.
but before we go
Which
too long, I just want to bring this up real quick. We did have our Discord server, which you guys can see in the chat. It's all on there, the Three Green Simulations group. And if you're live with us, you can also hit !Discord, and it'll give you the link. But we did run a poll this last week with our Discord server asking to see what they felt was if AI was good or bad for the future of humanity. And 60% of our Discord users said that, or the people who are participated said that it's bad. 40%, kind of what Tommy was talking about, 40% said that it was good. And then we also offered them to go to our discussion topic to be able to kind of explain. And we only had one person do it. It's our buddy, Fly with Caden. Definitely go check him out on Twitch. He's also a fellow pilot. He actually lives near me. Good kid. But this is what he commented. AI is beneficial, but could be detrimental to the human race if not used properly. It should not be used to replace or perform human duties, in my opinion, but instead be used to reduce human workload. Thank you, Kaden, for participating. Huge shout out to you. It makes the show a lot more interesting, so thanks for participating. But this is kind of what I'm going off of, Tommy. So what do you think about what
Yeah,
Kaden
and
said?
that is a very interesting look at thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where is yes, there are times where I would like the assistance, but there are certain things in this world that I am such a control freak that I have no use for AI.
But
And
let me ask,
that's that little part of me to
is that
where
generational?
no, it it could be. It is definitely my personality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like I said, this is clearly subjective because it's my
Right. Mm-hmm.
way of looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
When I remember after we finished last week's show, we were laughing about it in the post-show discussion. Like, dude, that does not sound like anything we
No.
would talk about
Yeah.
in our normal way. And now I don't want to say that we did last week's episode as a spoof. It was definitely a experimental episode to
Yep.
see and to lighten it up and have like a lot more fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is actually fun to me, the whole debating thing. But
Me too.
me
I like
personally,
enjoy
even
this.
though the articles, I'm sorry.
I said I enjoy this. Like this, having
Oh,
an educational discussion and debate is about something that that we both kind of have opposing views on. It serves as a good discussion for everyone. And a perfect
yes.
example is you kind of looked at it as spoof. I kind of looked at it as to see if AI would definitely be able to generate a pod scrap. What am I saying? Podcast script. And obviously, I think it, and this is funny because it's kind of generational, right? You're like, oh no, it's not, that's not us. But I was like, well, I enjoyed the reduction of workload because I didn't have to do as much research. And I also
Well,
it sounds better. So I went and brought forward a script that was generated by AI for this episode, obviously edited to sound more like me.
mhm.
But, and it's one of those things, it was two different things. So if you're listening, on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're watching this, let us know what you think. Did you enjoy, once again, did you enjoy the AI part of it, even though you didn't know it was AI, like a script from my side? Or is it something that you want something a little more raw with the extra uhs and something that's not necessarily as concise? Not saying that's what Tommy's doing, but that's what I used to do before we had the script. So it's just one of those things. Is it a generational thing? I'd be interested to see if it's like our younger viewers kind of agree with the AI side of things because Caden is younger than me and you. So if
Mhm.
it's something, or if it's something that Tommy's generation is more like, I really don't think AI's part of the future because it's a subjective thing. And I think we have two different really good schools of thought for our arguments, but I also think the common thread that we're talking about is that it's not good for complete takeovers. I think we both
Yes.
agree on
It
that.
absolutely not. Yeah, we
Replacing
want we
humans.
yeah, it can't replace a sorry.
No, you're good.
The bones are getting older day by day here. Uh
Can't replace the
yeah, it cannot
human.
replace a human. Um definitely can assist
Hmm.
if the assistance is wanted,
Right.
but you can't let it just come and take over control.
Correct.
And it was
Yeah.
funny because one of the articles that I did not send you,
Hmm.
um, I just read it for entertainment purposes, but it was not really a research article. It wasn't really factual. It's not something that we would air on the show.
Yeah.
It was clearly a subjective article
Hmm.
through the author that I was reading. Um, and this guy, the article is very, very interesting,
Hmm.
but you could tell the gentleman that wrote the article was very conspiracy theorist. I'm gonna have to search back through my history and send it to you just
Yeah.
for
Just so I can read it.
leisure reading because I
Mhm.
think you get a kick out of it because I got a kick out. I'm like, all right, brother, man, let me tell you, I did, there's definitely not going to be robots flying down and taking over the world and,
No.
sprouting in like transformers out of server rooms and these
Yeah.
LLMs that they use. And it just not just chill, brother, chill.
Yeah.
It's
And I
okay.
think
You know,
and like I said, I think the core thing that we've discussed today and we kind of agree on is it shouldn't take over humans, but we're kind of on the edge about how much, I would say how much AI should assist humans. And like you said, a choice. Is it one of those things, should it be forced upon us? Which may be another discussion for another time where we're not running almost to 90 minutes for the show. But is it something that should be forced on us or is it something that should still remain a choice?
right.
Right. Which is
I
definitely
think it's
something.
something that should remain a choice because the USC article, later on in the article, out of everyone polled,
Mhm.
only 16% of the study subjects actually chose to use the AI.
Okay. Which is, I think that we definitely should put a pin in that because that is, I think, definitely something that we should talk about in the future as another discussion topic because that could go. There's many arguments behind that too. Is like, for example, like as an EMT, we're not going to discuss it because I don't want, like I said, I don't want to prolong the show. But for example, like an EMT, if someone is sitting there, um, like in dire need of medical attention, but they're sitting there refusing medical attention. I know legally what you're supposed to, but as a human being, would you still render aid? If that makes sense. I don't know if that's a proper
It does.
example, but that's sort of thing. It's like, is if it's are we spiting AI just to, what's it called, cut your nose off just to spite your face, I think is the saying.
Hmm.
Is it that sort of thing, or is it something where it shouldn't be forced on us, that there's still wiggle room? But like I said, let's put a pin in that and let us know what you think, viewers, listeners. Let us know. On every single platform, there's the ability to comment, to poll. You can join our Discord and put stuff in the discussion topics and the general. All sorts of ways to communicate with us and let us know what you think. Is AI something that you would like to see take over human automation basically, or do you mind that it's assisting, or are you coming from the school of thought where AI shouldn't have any place in this world? Everybody, thanks again for watching the Torque and Thrust Talk Show, episode number 33, The Good, the Bad, the AI. Next show is going to be next Thursday, if I am not mistaken, should be January 23rd. We are going to move the show back a little bit for our work schedules, so it'll be starting at 11 a.m. Central Time, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, so that will be a little change for next week. But we will once again be going live here on YouTube and Twitch. Make sure you go follow us on YouTube, Twitch, our Facebook page as well. And there's also a TikTok and Blue Sky. In the chat, you can type in exclamation point and then any of those channels, and it'll pop up with that link as well. And for the Torque and Thrust Talk Show, I am Bill,
I am Tommy.
and we will see you next week. Thanks for watching.
In the sky, the engines roar. On the ground, the wheels explode. From the cockpit to the open road, stories of the brave unfold. Torque and thrust, feel the rush. Every turn and every gust. With Captain Bill and Tommy too. Adventures waiting just for